Hi there, this is Patricia Fenty from patriciafenty.com, and today I'm going to show you how you can wire wrap a stone that has no drilled holes in it. And so we're going to make a cage that you can wrap around any stone, semi-precious stone, rocks, sea glass, anything like that. And this one that I'm using is a 35mm cabochon. It's adventurine. So I'll show you the basic technique to do a cage, to do some coiling. Also, I'm going to show you some basic wire weaving, and then you'll be wire wrapping some of the bare wires just to add to the design. So let's get started. So here are the supplies you're going to need for this project. So first you'll need a stone of some sort or some sort of item that you're going to wrap. This technique is really good to use if you find any funky rocks. This is a nice piece of sea glass that I found, and I use this cage technique on it. So anything that doesn't have a drilled hole, this cage technique works really well for. So you need whatever you're going to wrap, and I'm using a 20 gauge copper wire. It's dead soft or it's a craft wire. And then you'll also need a 28 gauge wire, a fine wire, to do all the wrapping on like that there. And the 28 gauge is good for the weaving as well. So then you're going to need a few tools. So this is a flat nose plier. If you have it, that's great. It's handy to use to crimp and squish your weaving. But if you don't have that, you can get away with the chain nose plier. So you can use that one for sure. Then you need some round nose pliers, some cutters. These are side cutters. And then you also need a bale wrapping plier. If you don't have something like this, you can just use a pan or a crochet hook or knitting needle or something like that. And then you'll also need a cloth tape measure. So let's get started. I'll just get all this out of the way. So what you want to do is measure the circumference of the item you're going to wrap with a cloth tape measure. So mine is 4.5 inches, and then you're going to add an additional 8 inches to have enough to make your bale and do all the decorations. So I've already cut these. So you want to cut 3 wires of the 20 gauge. And then with the 28 gauge wire, you want to cut a 10-inch piece, well, 3 10-inch pieces altogether, but you'll start with one piece that's 10 inches, and you line all your wires up, making them flat, and then starting at the middle, you can mark this if you like, but just start at the middle, and then you just place your 28 gauge wire at the top, and you start wrapping it around the 3 wires. And you want to keep those wires flat. And you want the wraps to be tight enough so it's nice and snug, but you don't want it to be too tight that it squishes the 3 wires together. And I like using this fine wire for this. If you're new to wire wrapping, it's an easy way to wrap. The heavier gauge can sometimes be hard to wrap and it's awkward. And then once you have a few wraps, you just push it together with your fingernails like that, and you just keep wrapping it around. And so this is for the bottom of your stone. So I'll just speed this up a bit here. And so use up the whole 10 inches, and that'll create a nice secure band at the bottom. You can use the pliers to kind of crimp that in if you like. And so I measured that into the center. And so that's pretty much in the middle there. So now just wrap your ends, and you're going to trim them to the inside and then crimp them down. So you always want your finished wire edges to be to the inside of your work. And there we go. So I've got that all wrapped around, and bring that up so you can see how nice and neat that is. And there's the outside, and see how nice that looks. And then just push it in, make sure it's all nice and snug and tightly wrapped. There we go. And now you're going to take your stone and you're going to sort of fit it, shape it around your stone. Just gently work with the wire, gently move all 3 wires to fit it around the stone and just get your basic shape going. And do the best you can and see there, that's getting all nice. And we're going to put the more wire wrapping on each side there like that. And keep working it around. And I'm just getting the wire here ready. I've got another piece of 10-inch wire, and you know that this is the top here. So you're going to wrap wire again in the same way along this side, right in there, and then you're going to do the same thing on the other side. So just sort of mark it there with your finger and just start there. And this piece, actually, you'll be able to move it around, so it doesn't have to be perfectly in the right place. So just go ahead and wrap each side in the same way as you did the bottom, and I'll see you when we get back. All right, so here I've done all the wire wrapping with a fine wire, and it's all shaped nicely around the stone. So the next part is a bit tricky. So you can use a pen to mark the center of the wires. Like you're wanting to find the center at the top of the stone, and you mark each piece of wire. And then you're going to take your flat nose pliers, if you have them, grab all 3 wires, and you're going to bend at a 90-degree angle towards you, just like that. There, so you have a nice 90-degree angle bend. And then you're going to go around to the other side and put your pliers on that mark and bend the wire at 90 degrees again towards you, just like that. And if all things worked out perfectly well, these should line up nicely, and they don't. So it's too big. That's kind of good this happened, so I can show you if this happens to you. I just never seem to be able to get this right the first time. So I'm going to work with this side. I'm going to hold that snug. And now I'm going to bring this side around, and I can see there where I want to adjust it. So I'm going to take the pen again and make a new mark right there. And the way to correct this is to take your pliers and straighten that bend back. And this will get all hidden in the top of the bail. So even though there's a little bit of a bend in there, it doesn't matter. So now go back to your new mark, if you made this mistake, and rebend the wire. And there you go. And let's see, and that's a better fit. And you can see that fits better. So now what you want to do is straighten the wires out so they don't have that sort of curvy bend in them, and just make it a little more straight. And then you just need a little piece of your 28 gauge wire, maybe 4 inches or so. And we're going to secure these two sides together with the 28 gauge wire. Here, I'll just turn this around and just wrap it around. And it doesn't have to be neat, it just needs to be secure. And this will get covered up later on, so just wrap it around in order to secure the two sides together. And you can kind of tuck the ends in there. Use the pliers to sort of tuck everything together. And there we go. So now what we're going to do is we're going to pull the wires apart. So you're going to take what's going to be the back of your cage, take the two back wires and pull those back and away so you can identify those. And we're going to weave those for the bail. And then the other two wires you can just bend to the side like that, get them out of the way. And those will be off to the side. And this here is what we're going to be weaving on to make the bail. But before we do the bail, we are going to fit the stone into the cage. So you want to push these wire wrap pieces up to the top, sort of close to the top of where the bail is going to be. And just make sure your cabochon fits nicely in there. And starting at the back of your cabochon, what you want to do is use your chain nose pliers and hold the other two wires at the front and just grab the back wire only with the pliers. It's a little bit tricky to get this, and pull the wire towards the center. And it might kind of go abruptly. There we go. And there, see how that looks? And then go to the other side, push that wire wrapping to the top. And again, taking your pliers, holding the other two wires with your fingers, pull that in. There we go. And that's the back of your cage. And you can just sort of adjust them there and even them out. And then flip it over. And the back piece is done. Now you can put your cabochon or your stone in. And you can do the same thing. You may want to just use your fingernails to do this. And you grab that front wire and you're going to bring that wire over top of your stone. And you can shape this a little more once you have it enclosed in the cage. So then do the same thing on the other side. It's kind of awkward, but here we go. So bring that forward and push it in with your thumbs. And now you've got the stone wrapped inside the cage. So just fuss around with the wires a little bit, pushing them in, snugging it all up. And then if you want to make this a little bit more pointy, kind of like it is on the back, just take your pliers and pull it in with the pliers, and that will make the edge a little more pointy like it is in the back. There, just like that. And now your stone is tucked nicely in there. And as we carry on with the design, these wires are going to hold the stone in more as well. So there you go. Doesn't that look nice? So next we are going to do the wire weaving for the bail. Now for this, you are going to need a 20-inch piece of the 28 gauge wire, and just tuck it in and hold the 28 gauge with your thumb, and just hold it there with your thumb, kind of like that. You can tuck that wire in later. And your main wrapping wire is the wire that's closest to you, and the top wire is going to be wrapped not quite as often. So start by wrapping the wire over top of the 20 gauge wire, and then towards you, and then underneath and over top. And this is just being wrapped on the wire closest to you. And you're going to do 10 wraps on the wire closest to you. And so that's 4, 5. I know this is hard to see, and you just keep pushing your wire down so they're nice and snugly together. Of course, you don't want the wires to wrap over top of each other. You want them to be side by side. And that's 9. And now that's 10. So there's 10 wraps. And then just straighten your wire up. And now you're going to wrap around both wires. And then you're going to do another wrap around both wires. So your 11th wrap and 12th wrap goes around both wires. And then you're going to do 10 more wraps around your front wire. And this is the pattern. So I'm just speeding this up here. So I'm at there. So I'm at 10. And then you do 2 wraps around both wires. And just keeping that second wire nice and straight beside the first wire. So just carry on with that pattern. So 10 wraps around your front wire and 2 wraps around both wires. And you're going to want to do 9 pattern repeats all together. So I'll come back. 10 wraps around the bottom wire and 2 full wraps around the top both wires. So here we go. So there's 9 repeats, and then I wrap the remaining wire over to the other side, and I continued to wrap it until it was finished, and there was about 25 more wraps after that. So this is the wire we're going to use for our bail. So the next step that you want to do is just put those wires out of the way. So here's your bail making pliers, or you know, a knitting needle or something like that. I'm going to use the biggest bail here, and so then you just want to wrap the wire forward to the front of your piece, and then you kind of want to tip the wire back and then continue to bring the bail around, and so I have a fairly big bail there. And then what you want to do is continue to get that front part of the bail wrapped tight up against the neck. So I'm sort of pushing the front of that wire down and in, and so see how it gets that shape where it's sort of bent towards the front as well. So you want that to be tucked up against there nice. So then you're going to take the front wires and separate them from the middle wires, and you're going to start to wrap them around the bail. So you can just wrap it around a couple of times like that, and then go in the opposite direction with the other bail and go, or with the other wire, and go underneath those center wires. And this doesn't have to be perfect. This can be a little bit of an uneven style of wrapping, and it looks kind of funky like that. So try not to be too neat. And there are no rules here. You can just do this randomly and just wrap around like that, and keep wrapping it around your bail in no perfect way. And now all you want to do is make sure you leave a bit of a tail, like an inch or an inch and a half, and one is a little bit longer than the other, but that's okay. And so you can push them around to the back of your piece and push them down. And then you're going to take your round nose pliers and coil the ends. And you can coil them either way. I'm going to be coiling them in to the center of the piece. And just like that. And then this side here. Oh, that wire actually was coiled to the outside of the piece. I had it crossed over to the other side. And so this one I'm going to coil in the opposite direction. It's interesting to have this in the camera frame. It's actually just sort of out of the view of my glasses, so I'm actually kind of wrapping blind here. I can't see what I'm doing, but I'm gonna take my chain nose pliers and just continue to do the wrap with the chain nose pliers and continue to coil it with the pliers. And then you just sort of want to push it down and snug it up to your stone like this. And so that's helping to hold the cabochon in from the back. So now we're going to finish off the front and do the decoration in the front. All right. So now we're going to work on designing the front. And you can see here with the bail wire, I have a bit of wire wrapping coming down at the top of the stone. And I have this wire here with a single wrap. So I'm just going to leave that for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do single wraps around both of these wires. So I've cut 22 inches of wire and I'm going to wrap each side. So you can do that if you like. It'll just add a little bit more body. So if you want to do this, you can just tuck it into the top of your bail there and just start wrapping, and then just wrap it around and keep the wraps nice and snug. And this will make a really nice extra design on the front, so you can go ahead and do that. Okay, so I've wrapped both wires and 22 inches of wire on each side, and I took the right wire and I wrapped it around the bail this way and down to the right side. And I'm just doing one wrap with the wired wrap piece, and this side I'm leaving longer so that I can make a bigger spiral or coil on this side. So next I'll show you how to do the coil. All right, here we go. So I cut this side to 1 3/4 on one side and 1 1/2 on the left side. And when you are wrapping the wire, you just kind of want to crimp the final little piece into the back of the work. So you kind of want to always finish off at the back of your work with that fine wire. So this is going to be the bigger of the loops. I left a little tip to be able to grab with the pliers. And I'm going to start coiling this towards the outside of the pendant. And so I'm coiling this to the right, if you're looking straight at it. And now I'm going to grab my flat nose pliers and continue to coil it gently. There we go. That's looking about where I want that to be. So now you can see how the wire is sort of bending up towards you. So just take the pliers and bend it back down. The wire is really flexible, so you just sort of want to move it around so it's nice and flat. So on the next side, I left a little bit more of the bare wire just so the design looks a little bit different. And I'm going to start coiling again to the outside of the pendant in the opposite direction of the other one. And the inside of this wrap will be a little bit tighter than the other side, so it'll look a little bit different. And you can use the other pliers too to start to move it or wrap it in. You can use your fingers as well. And again, you can see how that's bent out, and take your pliers and just sort of twist it back towards the stone. So I'm going to kind of pull this down a bit. I want this coil to be a little bit lower than this coil. So I'm actually even going to bring this coil a little bit tighter so it's up a little bit higher there. So you just sort of have to work a bit with the wire to get them to lay flat. So now I'm going to bring the wire design all to the left, to the right. Which way is that? Left, yeah. So I know that I want this coil to land underneath the first coil. So starting from the bottom of that coil, you measure down 1.5 inches from the bottom here. So measure 1.5 inches and make my little cut there. And you know, this is sort of a rough guideline, but it gives you enough wire to make another nice coil. So now you can take your round nose pliers and start to make the coil in the same direction. And use your pliers, you can use your fingers, use your pliers, and keep working that towards. And see, I'm going to sort of wrap the wire around the bottom of the other wire. And so it's a little bit fussy, and it takes a little bit of fiddling. I'm just going to bring that in a little bit more. And there we go. And again, you sort of have to work with your pliers to press the wire flat so it's laying nicely against the stone. So there's that one. So for this one, I want it to land underneath that second coil. So again, I'm going to measure down from the bottom of the second coil about 1.5 inches and cut that. And then you take your round nose pliers and bring the coil in that same direction. And use the other pliers to work the coil. And now that's coming down nicely. And let's see here. Just sort of moving it in a little bit more. Just using your thumbs to sort of work it around. I'm just going to make that a little bit tighter. And then adjust it again with the pliers, just using your thumbs. And again, just sort of work with your fingers to get the wires to lay flat on your stone. You can use your pliers, you can use your fingers, and just move it around so that it's laying nice and flat. And there you go, we're all done. And doesn't that look beautiful? And it's that easy. And you can see how it looks on the back. And this is all very secure. That won't fall out. Oh, and I see I have a little bit of the 28 gauge wire there from the wire wrapping. So if you have any little ends, you can just tuck them up into the bail there. And there you go. Isn't that pretty? So thank you for joining me. I hope you liked this tutorial. Please like, subscribe, and share.